Hi, this is John again, the owner and developer of VectorDecks. In this tutorial, we're going to go over the detailed step specs in that step specifications window. You'll see it here after the step type. Go ahead and click on step specs. This will bring up a window with these different views of the detailed information about the step itself. I even created a section view here. It shows it here, section A section of the left side of the detail and construction of that step. Now, all the changes made in these particular fields, all these dimensional changes and options, get updated in these different views. You'll have an understanding of what things are before you actually apply them. A thing to note here is that any changes you make with any of these settings will automatically update your step type views too. Let me show you an example here. Let's make this a step tool landing and a kite type landing. Now you see the profile here. It's actually drawn to that 36-inch rail opening throughout that transition. Now if we go back to step specs, and let's change this to 48, go ahead and apply it. Now go back to your type. You see how it widened it. It's going to automatically make all those adjustments to anything you change in the step specs, even the rise and the run. Anything made here will automatically get updated here before you even apply it to your document. So you can view those changes if you'd like before you do apply them. Any parameters that you can enter, any manual dimensions such as these particular fields, they won't update these views automatically. You're going to have to make those changes first and then click that apply dimension changes. It just sped up the redraws. It was slowing everything down when every field you changed would update these particular windows. I'll show you an example. We'll go here and let's make this 8 and let's make that step tread 9. Now you see everything's still staying at its original 10 and 7.5. Once I click that apply, these particular windows will update and show you those changes. Next you'll see this Use Sundeck Info. And as with all the other plugins, by default that's checked. That's telling the step to use all the information supplied by the Sundeck frame, which is its parent. Now when it's checked, this block of edit capabilities is turned off because it's pulling that information off that deck frame. But you still have some edit capabilities down in here, and that's set with respect to the step rise type. That has nothing to do with the frame. That's this particular board in here. You're defining what size you want, and if you make any changes in here, if we made that a 2x, you'll see it'll still maintain that 1-inch nose. It just adjusts itself mathematically to give here the 9-inch tread and the 8-inch rise. This next option you see, step fascia, is the fascia part of the sides of each side of the step. You see the definition here too. You can define that if you went with a larger one, if you wanted to do away with that bottom piece of trim, which is an edit capability. If you click that off and you have no bottom trim, you may be able to widen that board, let's say to a 5/4 by 12, and be satisfied with that little bit of treated lumber exposed there. But if you also wanted that to be a thicker board, you'll see how it'll adjust out. It also shows this finish in here, and up in here it'll define what you've selected. I'm going to go back to that 5/4 by 10 and that little piece of trim at the bottom. I think that's a neat feature. You also can control what type of trim that is. I have a 1x3. You have these selections that you can change and edit for that appearance. Now this shows sort of a 2-board finish to the side of the step. I find that one big long board, it kind of makes for a real broad look, not very attractive. But you do have that option to change it. It just so happens that the Sundeck frame fascia is a 2-piece type finish, so by default it's pulling that information here. But if you don't use the Sundeck information, you can control exactly what that step looks like. I turned that off, show you how it looks like with 1 piece and with 2 piece. But we're going to leave that Use Sundeck checked. That's pretty much the standard most of the time. You'll just pull that information off the Sundeck so it matches the Sundeck frame itself. Now, wherever you have a menu or a selection that's not grayed out, you can control over that particular component. You can give this a class that you'd like, or even the 4x4 down here, but if it's grayed out, it's pulling that information off the Sundeck frame. This bottom menu is the landing post type. When you have that landing option selected, there's going to be posts that'll go from the bottom of the deck down to grade. And you may want to match the deck in some cases, or you may not need to. By default, 4x4 is adequate enough. It's enough in strength and material to support that landing. But you have the option to change that to a 6x6, for example. And if you have a finish that's white, trimmed out type of beams and posts, you can change that to white if you'd like. That'll give you a little bit of control over trying to match the situation that you have on the deck. Now let's go ahead and apply this to the document and see how it changes things. Well, let me see what I got here for step type. Alright, we'll keep that kite. How about we add a little flare bottom to it. Now we're going to click OK. What it's going to do is going to redraw that particular landing. Well, it took that straight standard step straight to grade and it converted it without having to redraw anything. It created this turn landing. Now if you notice, because we made that step width 48-inch opening, these posts were placed in when the step was 36-inch. So that's an easy edit. I'm going to show you how to do that if you want. Go to top view, select your deck frame, turn 3D off. That'll speed up the process. Then it shows you a preview on the step itself where these particular posts are supposed to be. So let's double click on this rail, and then you can just drag it back and let it snap to that post there. And you could double click on this rail, and the same thing, it gives you an edit handle. You can just drag that back to this opening and let it snap right to there. Now when you go back to your turn it back to 3D, I'll present this in a let's go in that right isometric again. You can see how it now lined up the rails correctly. Let me render that in OpenGL. See, it was that simple. Now you'll notice you can't quite tell because of the rise and run changes, but I asked for the post to be 6x6s instead of 4x4s, so it drew those 6x6s in that place. It also widened it, and it all conforms to the Sundeck frame because it had its use deck information checked. Now in our next tutorial, we'll go over the step specifications lattice option.